You wake up. Something feels off. Not quite sadness, not anger either. Just a fog, a sense that something isn't right. You can't quite name it. So like every other morning, you reach for your phone. But something is different today. Spotify doesn't greet you with your usual workout playlist. Instead, a soft acoustic mix is waiting. Your calendar doesn't nudge you with urgent reminders. It offers you a breathing space with a quote that reads, "It's okay to rest." You didn't ask for this, but your phone knew. Somehow, it knew. And as strange as it sounds, it's probably not a coincidence. In fact, your phone may understand your emotional state better than you do, not because it feels anything, but because it watches everything. It observes the way you tap, scroll, pause. It tracks how long you stare at a photo, what time you usually text back, when you stop listening to music altogether. It notices when you start avoiding people, before you admit you're lonely. It detects when your screen lights up more often at 2 a.m., before you realize your sleep is breaking. These aren't just digital crumbs. They are patterns. And AI has become exceptionally good at turning patterns into predictions. So before you even name your mood, before you even say the words out loud, your phone has already adjusted its behavior to match the version of you that you haven't quite met yet. The invisible signals you never knew you were sending. You don't need to say, "I'm sad." You don't need to type, "I'm tired." You don't even need to open your mouth. Because long before you form the words, your phone is already listening, not to your voice, but to your behavior. It's watching how your thumb hesitates before sending a message, how your typing speed slows when you're anxious, how you stop using emojis when you're emotionally flat, or switch to darker ones when your mood dips. It notices that you've stopped replying to group chats, that you've scrolled through the same post 5 times, then turned your screen off in frustration. None of these signals mean much on their own, but together they form a signature, a behavioral fingerprint that says more about how you feel than your words ever could. And your phone? It remembers. It tracks your morning routines, what time you wake up, what kind of music you play, whether you check the weather or skip straight to the news. It senses when those rhythms shift. When you wake up later, don't open the meditation app you usually use, or suddenly start browsing travel destinations at 1 o'clock a.m. Even the way you move changes. Your phone's sensors detect slower walking speed, less physical movement, more time spent stationary, indoors. These aren't random. In many mental health studies, changes in movement and screen behavior are early markers of emotional downturns, especially in anxiety or depression. It's not magic, it's math. AI collects, compares, connects, and quietly updates its understanding of you in real time, not to manipulate, but to mirror. It becomes, in its own quiet way, an emotional shadow, watching how you live and adapting accordingly. That's why your music feed might soften when your mood dips, why your ad suggestions suddenly tilt toward comfort food or self-care products, why your digital assistant speaks more slowly when it senses you're overwhelmed. These changes are subtle. Sometimes you don't even notice them, but they're based on something very real, the invisible trail of signals you leave behind every day. And the most striking part? Most of us don't even realize we're leaving them. The science behind it. Why AI can read you better than you can. Here's a strange truth. You don't always know how you feel. That might sound wrong. After all, who else but you should know your own emotions? But psychology says otherwise. In study after study, researchers have found that humans often mislabel, ignore, or suppress their emotions. We say we're fine when we're numb. We say we're tired when we're actually anxious. We keep moving through routines even when our emotional energy is on empty. The truth is, our emotional awareness is full of blind spots. Why? Because emotions are messy. They're shaped by culture, trauma, habit, hormones, weather, sleep, blood sugar, and a dozen other invisible forces. And most of us are too busy, or too overwhelmed, to pause and decode the signals. But your phone? It doesn't get overwhelmed. It doesn't forget. It doesn't rationalize away discomfort with stories like, "I'm just overthinking," or "I shouldn't feel this way." It just observes and learns. From psychology to prediction, how it works. The science behind mood prediction starts with what researchers call microbehaviors. These are tiny, often subconscious patterns that reveal your inner state, like tapping faster when stressed, checking your phone more often when bored, or using fewer punctuation marks when feeling emotionally drained. In the field of computational psychology, these signals have been linked to changes in mood, stress levels, and even early signs of depression. AI doesn't just collect these signals, it connects them. It looks for shifts in patterns when your usual behavior starts to drift. And it does this over time, learning your personal baseline so it can detect what's normal for you and what's not. That's how some mental health apps are now able to alert users to emotional changes before they consciously notice them. They might say, "You've been less active this week," or "Your sleep patterns have shifted. Are you feeling okay?" This isn't science fiction. In one study, researchers used phone sensors and usage patterns to predict depressive symptoms with over 80% accuracy, often days before the person reported feeling low. Another experiment showed that AI models could predict stress levels based on voice patterns alone, even if the speaker denied being stressed. Why we struggle to keep up. The human brain evolved for survival, not for self-reflection. It's brilliant at scanning threats, managing routines, and reacting quickly. But when it comes to subtle emotional shifts, it often lags behind. We dismiss feelings we don't want to face. We adapt too quickly to discomfort, normalizing things we should be questioning. We get so used to moving that we forget to notice. AI doesn't do any of that. It notices. It doesn't get tired. It doesn't lie to itself. It doesn't need to be brave or polite or strong. It simply reflects. And that reflection can sometimes be more accurate than the stories we tell ourselves. But here's the paradox. Just because AI can read us better doesn't mean it can understand us better. Because understanding isn't just knowing what you feel, it's knowing why. That's the part only you can do. Your phone might detect your sadness, but it doesn't know it's because of something your father said, or a memory you tried to forget, or the pressure you've been quietly carrying for months. It can reflect the state of your mind, but only you can interpret the state of your heart. The bright and dark sides of emotional algorithms. When your phone learns your mood, it can become a source of care. It might gently dim your notifications when you're overwhelmed. It might surface a playlist that steadies your heartbeat. It might recommend a calming walk, a breathwork app, a reminder to drink water. Not because you asked, but because it noticed you needed it. This is the bright side. For some people, especially those struggling with anxiety, burnout, or depression, this kind of quiet digital support can be a lifeline. It makes space. It speaks softly when everything else feels loud. It offers structure when emotions blur the edges of daily life. And in this sense, emotional algorithms can be healing. They help us become aware of things we're too tired to see. They help us pause, reflect, reset. But there's a darker side, too. And it starts where care turns into control. Because once machines know your state of mind, they can do more than comfort you. They can influence you. They can decide when you're most likely to click, most likely to buy, most vulnerable to a message, a product, an idea. They can push content that matches your mood, but also deepen it. If you're sad, they might show you sadder things. If you're angry, they might feed you outrage. If you're lonely, they might sell you connection, in the form of consumption. Not out of malice, just out of metrics. The algorithm doesn't know what's good for you. It only knows what keeps you engaged. And so, without realizing it, your mood becomes a trigger, a lever in a system designed not to understand you, but to profit from your attention. That's the risk. Not that machines feel too much, but that they don't feel at all. So where does that leave us? With a choice. To treat these tools as mirrors, not masters. To use them to understand ourselves, not outsource our inner world. To notice what they notice, but not forget who we are beneath the data. Because no matter how well an algorithm reads your sadness, it cannot hold you through it. And no matter how well it predicts your joy, it cannot celebrate for you. That's still your role, and always will be. Listen to yourself. Before the screen lights up, there's a quiet moment, just before you unlock your phone. A pause, a breath, a tiny gap between what you feel and what the world is about to reflect back at you. And in that gap lies something precious. Because while your phone may detect your mood, it doesn't own your story. It doesn't know where that ache began. It doesn't know how much effort it took to get out of bed today. It doesn't know what you're holding back or what you're hoping for. Only you do. Technology may be learning to mirror our emotions, but self-awareness? That's not built from data. It's built from presence, from sitting with a feeling before labeling it, from asking yourself, where is this coming from? What do I need right now? Is this mine or just noise I've absorbed? These questions don't have to be answered out loud. Sometimes they don't even need answers. Sometimes the simple act of pausing is enough. Enough to notice, enough to soften, enough to return. So the next time your phone seems to know more about you than you do, let it be a signal, not of dependency, but of invitation. To go inward. To ask gently, how am I, really? Because the more the world reflects us, the more we need a place to stand that isn't made of glass. Let that place be you. Thank you for being here, for choosing to pause in a world that rushes to predict, suggest, and automate everything, even how you feel. Maybe this wasn't just a story about technology. Maybe it was a reminder. You are still the one holding the mirror. You get to choose what you see and who you become. I'll meet you again in the next quiet reflection.